On table 2, I make a standard open with 10-9 offsuit on the button and get called by a 57-12 in the big blind. On 8-5 deuce flush draw, I continuation bet, trying to get him to fold some jack, queen, and king highs. I don't really expect him to fold ace high on the flop. The turn gives me a gut shot and a good scare card to his very wide flop continuing range. So stack sizes are actually quite shallow, making it a precarious double barrel, but I decided that I had enough room to fire again and get folds from his ace highs and pocket threes type hands. If he calls, I have 10 outs a large portion of the time, and even sometimes can have the best hand. On table 2, I open 5s in the cutoff and get 10x 3-bet exactly 100 big blinds deep from the small blind. I don't think this would be a good call here. I'd probably fold pocket 8s as well as maybe stronger hands than that. On table 1, I flat call pocket 8s in the small blind versus an under the gun open, and there's an overcall in the big blind. Naturally, I've got the video rolling, so I flop middle set on a very wet middling board. There are a lot of options here. Donk leading is definitely one of them. If we check raise, we could get the big blind out with the second best hand and lose value that way. Whereas if we donk, the big blind can put some dead money in if the under the gun player decides to raise the flop. What's not an option here, I think, is check calling. We don't care about getting value from the big blind 6-7 type hands. When we have such a big hand, we're really concerned about cracking the under the guns, queen jack of diamonds, pocket aces, nut flush draws, hands like that. So check calling can involve the big blind just like donk leading, but in reality playing a big pot out position with a ton of bad cards, possibly multi-way, is a really unappealing idea in relation to check raising. And donk leading can also lead to a big pot being played on the turn out of position multi-way. So I think check raising has the clear advantage over both options there for that reason. I check back middle pair with 5-4 suited on queen 4 deuce rainbow, both for pot control, but also because I perceive a 16-13's small blind cold calling range to be quite strong in this spot. For that reason, I decide not to call or raise on the jack turn. If he doesn't have the best hand, he has a fair number of outs, and it's not a spot where I'm going to find a large number of favorable river spots. So one thing to consider when checking back hands like this is how many turn cards you can continue on. I think Jay Ballers talked pretty articulately about this, and by continue I mean calling or raising. So on a 3 of spades, I would raise a lead probably 100% of the time because I expect him to lead almost all ace-x hands that I'm ahead of, and I can fold out some hands like pocket 7s that he lead folds. So like I said, one thing to consider when checking back hands like this is how many turn cards you can continue on, and it's a good question in this spot because if I'm giving up on a lot of turns like I did, then I'm better served by betting the flop. But I thought I could continue with a high enough frequency, so I checked back. It seems like the under the gun player on table 1 made some sort of hero fold versus us, which is curious. I guess pocket 7s or a medium strength 10 makes sense for him to bet fold. If he bet folded queens or something like that, he really owned us, but we do check raise king queen of diamonds as well there. So I'm taking a note of that. You may say, well, how often is a note like that going to help you? It probably never will, and I agree that it probably never will. Most of the notes I take never get used, but it's like throwing spaghetti at a television. Eventually something's going to stick. And the one time where you see someone do something and open your note box and poof, it tells you exactly what you need to know to make some inspired read, well, I assure you taking all those useless notes will be worth it for those times.